Always
There you go.
There we go. Absolutely. I need somebody who goes like that in the background. Hi, everybody. My name's Claire Kennedy. Welcome to our Wednesday recovery talks on our Kennedy Street Live Facebook page and YouTube channel. And our podcast as well. Yes, we're doing a podcast as well. We thought we might as well get this information as far as we can. So who are we? I'll explain who we are. We're a very small Brighton-based charity called Kennedy Street CIO, and we are a recovery connections charity led by people in recovery for anybody who's interested in recovery, and that includes the person that's affected by addiction and also the family members and loved ones. So if you need any help or support, please don't hesitate to reach out and we'll connect you to a solution that's most appropriate to you. Yes, so that's what we do. And we do have a helpline as well. We'll put that number across. So if ever you've got any questions or anything like that, I'll let Kev introduce himself, and then he'll introduce our fabulous guest speaker. Over to you.
Excuse me. Hello, everybody. My name's Kevin Kennedy. I'm the patron of Kennedy Street. I'm the pretty poster boy. I hope you're all well out there in these mad times that we're living in. Today, we're going to be talking about cross addiction. And for those of you who don't know what that is, that means you're addicted to more than one drug, whether you could be an alcoholic, a drug user, you could be a gambler, you could be all three. Or one leads to the other two. One is that you get drunk and then suddenly go gambling, or you get drunk and then you take drugs. So that's what we're going to deal with today. And I have a very special guest, a gentleman called Neil Kerr, who at the age of 19 was sectioned, diagnosed with drugs-related schizophrenia. And at 21, he was in the infamous Blarney prison in Glasgow as a direct result of his gambling. He is a great story to tell with a lot of hope in it and a lot of information. So without further ado, I'll pass you over to Neil. You're very welcome, Neil.
Thanks, Claire. Thanks, Kevin. Yeah, the pronunciation is Blarney, but maybe it's a Scottish pronunciation. We do like to say our words in our own way. Yeah, my name's Neil. I suppose I'm still a drugs-related schizophrenic, although I don't have any medication to date. I'm a compulsive gambler, and I'm an alcoholic. And so what I'm going to do today is share my experience, strength, and hope, what it was like, and then what happened, and the transformation of what my life has become like today. And I grew up in a small village in Scotland, a small mining village. There's a population of, around 5,000 people. And around the age, 7 or 8, there was a traumatic thing actually happened around that age. My father left the family home, and it tore my heart out, as it would any young boy. And I never really got over that sort of thing. But around that age, I seen this group of people in a housing scheme, and they were, in a corner of the street, and I went up, and there was all this money in the middle, and my heart went out to it. And when I say my heart went out to it, I mean, I didn't think that would get me sweets, that would get me lemonade as a normal sort of small kid. I wanted the money. And I didn't know what, I just wanted the money. And as time went on, my sort of peers would start playing cards under lampposts, for pennies. And then occasionally you get into somebody's house when their mother went to the bingo and went out for a drink on a Friday or Saturday night. And then again, as time went on, in the teen years, I would play cards in my house. I'd say, Mum, can I play in the kitchen? And we'd play in the kitchen or the hallway and stuff. It was pretty much fun, it was a group of kids playing for pennies. There was no real money involved. But at that particular time, my life was dysfunctional. At school, I just couldn't cope at school. I get kept back Probably the most horrendous moment of my life to date. And when I say horrendous, I mean undignified. I was sitting there in the class at primary 4 or 5. The teacher came in. It was after the summer. Everybody had their new clothes on. The energy of moving on to your next class, and I was asked to stay behind. Neil, would you stay behind? The rest of you's room 3, Mrs. McDonald. And to my horror, a year younger came in. And because I come from a small village, I knew everybody, and everybody knew me. And I swore at that moment in time, no one must know, and this was a self-diagnosis, and this is all on reflection, no one must know that I'm stupid, thick, and inadequate. And that was the guilt and the shame from that incident type thing. So I felt disconnected from intelligence, from whatever normality would present itself. I knew I wasn't normal because this incident proved that teachers never said nothing. No one had prepared me in any way, shape, or form. I know now they'd done it for my own good, for me to catch up. So when it came to like the experiment with drinking stuff, and we used to buzz petrol. Buzzing petrol was you put a petrol in a crisp pocket bag, and then you inhaled the fumes, and it put you into an echo, a right sort of kind of trippy sort of kind of state. And it was quite a funny incident when I was about 14 doing this. We got some Indian ink from school, and somebody was doing a tattoo across the knuckles. And where I come from, it's quite a Rangers, Celtic, Protestant, Catholic, UDF, IRA sort of type area. And this person was getting his tattoo done on his knuckles. And there's a commemorative thing called the Battle of the Boyne in 1690. And I was doing my thing. And all of a sudden the laughter and the tears came down my eyes. And these guys are panicking. You okay? You okay? And the more they panicked, the more I laughed, and I couldn't breathe with the laughter. What he'd done was he'd done 1960 across his knuckles. Instead of 1690, he'd done 1960. So to this day, he's got 1960, and he'll have to explain that to people why he's got 1960, because he's certainly not that old. Yeah. And so yes, I think I went through the normal channels of my peer group, and you don't realise that it's not normal until when you think back to other peer groups. But we used to do the magic mushrooms, mean enough every day, because I would dry them out. I was like the instigator of it all, sort of thing. So I would dry them out, put them through a tea sieve, and you take a spoonful, so you can take them summer, winter, whenever. But they normally come through in the September, and the wet weather's conducive to a good crop, and obviously Scotland's wet weather. And so there I was doing magic mushrooms, I was playing cards, I was sniffing petrol, I was drinking like your street drinkers down the public park at the weekend, sort of type thing. And everything was alive and electric. But when I got to be 18, I had been getting into the bookmakers for about 2 years by this time, and I was hooked in the bookmakers. I was, I call it pathological, compulsive, impulsive. It is quite mediocre of an emotion. Pathological means that it's like a murderer. There's no thought of the consequences. There's just that it's a great metaphor, that blinkered sort of type thing, and that I was getting credit, even after 6 months, but I was getting credit up to £10, and I was on a wage of £23.50 a week, and I was getting credit of £10 for any chance of getting that line on till Friday, and okay. He said, no, that's your limit, and it was always £10 was my limit. And my mother had a regular relationship by this time, and I knew him, and he was getting in the bookies, and he was a good man, and I was writing lines out for him, and he came into some money through the breakup of his business, and I was writing £200 wins for him. So I was getting into this fantasy world. I think he spent quite a few grand anyway, and in 1 week, and it fueled me with that's what I wanted, and I had this incessant need to be in a bet, not necessarily like to collect to get money, but if there was a race in the dogs or the horses and I missed it, I felt empty inside because I'd missed the race. Not because I'd lost the money, but because I'd missed the race. I wasn't connected with it. I was getting into debt. I was, I don't know, persuasive, you might say, towards my mother. And there was a loan man that came round, so I used to get loans. I would get Provident loans. You get something like, you get a Provident loan where you get clothing, and it's a clothing voucher where you get £30, you pay £33 back. Then it was like loans, so you got £100. They took the first payment, took insurance. You end up about 65, 70 quid, and I had 2 or 3 of them, and then I would juggle them about, clunk them together, pay one off to get another one to top it up to the top again, and my mother had a nickname for me, and it's a horrible nickname, but it was a nickname that merited. It was called Geezer. Geezer pound, geezer fag. And that's what every time that she met me, that I met her, because I always met her when I was out and about town, geezer pound, geezer fag. And yeah, my sister was the same. I would borrow off my sister and stuff like that, and I would steal rooftops and stealing lead and stuff like that. And I ended up through all my lifestyle is it going into a place called Ailsa. I was in there for 6 months. I woke up one day and I never took anything in the morning. And I was working in a farm. I went, seen a guy with no eyes, stopped in a tractor. No eyes, just hollow in his eyes. And then I run from there, and then there was a crowd of these bees chasing me, and I got in the house, and there was like every ornament was an eye, and my mind just went completely crazy, and I got so paranoid that I was smashing up my mother's house, and they put me in this institute. I ran away for the first one. They put me in a local psychiatric unit. I ran away twice, and then they put me in this other one. There's like a Victorian hospital, and I thought I was in there for the rest of my life. I was 6 weeks before they would let me out the front door for fresh air, and then you got escorted. You get escorted around the grounds with male nurses. And when you go in a bath, you have to have a male nurse present when you go in a bath. And if you don't go in a bath, they won't give you this escort parole. With this parole, when you get out, you get weekend leave. So they try to blackmail you on these different things. You can't lie in your bed through the day. Yeah. You're getting injections all the time. I was in a bad way. I went in there 9.5 stone fit, and I was 13.5 when I came out. I didn't have the courage to tell my mum that I wanted to go back in, because I knew everybody in the town, and I didn't want the shame of them seeing me. It was a nurse who encouraged me to go down to the clinic to get an injection every fortnight instead of every week. I couldn't shave. My mother would shave me. And I went down to that clinic, and whenever I met someone, I would go up, and I knew crystal clear what I was going to say, but there was blah, blah. And then I walk away and I go, they think I'm a bloody idiot. And it was horrendous, absolutely horrendous. And anyway, after about 6 months coming out of there, my mate, he spent his money, and he broke into his place of work, stole a video, and we ended up stealing. We and another guy and him, we get wheelbarrows from the brickwork, and we've done 2 trips, and we stole a few grand's worth of stuff, and we had £500 worth of it. We ended up going down to London. But I spent all mine in the bookies and the Monday sort of type thing, all my money, and that was the drive behind me, and that's why I ended up in Berlin prison. So I ended up in Berlin prison, and I knew what I was going to do. I'd come out, and I would go to the dentist. I was going to get away from the hometown, and I was going to deal with the gambling, and I did. I came out, went to the dentist, I went to get gambling counselling, and I moved into a homeless hostel in Scotland. I ended up going to Gambs Anonymous because the gambling counselling didn't work, because as soon as money would touch my hand, it went to my head. 228 penny bar, 3 o'clock ripping, I was away. I went to Gambs Anonymous for the first time, and I cried when I seen 20 questions. I thought, how did they get inside my head? And I stopped gambling. And I use that information today because it's more about not gambling, because it's more about financials. But at that particular time, it was about financial. I stopped and started. For the next 18 years, I stopped and started. I get sectioned about 5 times. I done 1 prison sentence of 3 months, and I done 2 or 3 remands, all for misdemeanors or indifferent things. I was homeless for 18 years. Oxford, Bristol, London, Southampton, Winchester, all over the south of England. I would come up to Scotland I went down to England through meeting a girl in the Colwynnon. I know it's quite fast. I went down to England through meeting a girl in Colwynnon, and I went through all these 18 years. And when I went up to Scotland, I would get sectioned because I came up and I done some bizarre things. And not once during all that time did I have a sustained period of staying anywhere, or I would have been on medication. And part of being unwell on that type of medication that was on would be not taking medication. So in a strange way that I'm talking to you today was because I never sustained a period of time in any one place. So throughout even like counting the 2 years in a homeless hostel, for 20 years, I never stayed longer than 2 years in one place. No longer than 2 years. And it came to a head, well, there was one incident actually. I was in a homeless hostel in Worthing, and I was coughing up blood, and I was attending Gambs Anonymous in Brighton. I was coughing up blood, went to the doctors, told him everything. He said, it's a drink that's doing that. And you know what? I don't normally swear, but for the reality of what this is, I said, thank fuck, I thought it was no well. I didn't associate alcohol with illness. It was my medication. It was my go-to place. It was my reward because I had enough money for it, sort of type thing. And I ended up in a street homeless detox just before Christmas. And some bizarre names I've had of places. One Paradise Street in Oxford. And it was a detox for homeless people. And I was on a 10-day course of Librium. And I had a little hat on, bringing in the bells. I drunk after about 6 weeks after it because I was physically well again. It's crazy. I was physically well again. And during that time, I went to Gambs Anonymous in Reading, which I had been to on and off as well. I'd never got a year. I'd never got a year in those 18 years, but I always went to Gambs Anonymous. I never got a year, but I always went. And I went to Gambs Anonymous, and somebody at the break says, would you like some help with your drinking? I said, no, you're all right. I was in a detox unit, and I'm saying you're all right, because I had money, I wasn't drinking. How did I need any help? And within Gambs Anonymous, the steps aren't the same. I've been in there. I know. I've travelled all around the world to Gambs Anonymous. I've been to the World Convention in Los Angeles. I've been to San Diego, sort of things and stuff, and they haven't got the same impetus because the guy who took the steps, he took a lot of stuff out of it. And step 2, he changed it. I know a lot of people won't have a concept of what the steps are, but those who are in basic recovery would know this. Like step 12, it says, having worked these principles in all our affairs, we try to carry this message to the still suffering compulsive gambler. In Alcoholics Anonymous, it says, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps. So what it's saying is, first of all, you're asleep. Second of all, you have to go from 1 to 12 to get this awakening. And these are important things, because the most common thing for people in recovery, through my experience, is that they stop and tell other people to stop, which is step 1 and 12. It all came to a head 5 years later. 5 years later, and I found myself passing blood, cold sweat, scars, and all that from the lifestyle. And black eyes were common, where I just went into complete oblivion and stuff. And I thought, at least get found dead in bed. I was sitting in the toilet seat, shivering, roll up hanging out the mouth. At least get found dead in bed. There was no concept, a thought, possibility of me phoning an ambulance. No way, shape, or form. I've never done that in my life because I had no respect for the life. I had no sustainable relationships, I had no children, no job, nothing, absolutely nothing. I was a foul-mouthed, aggressive Scotsman sort of thing. And two things came into my head, and they were powerful. They were so powerful that one of them didn't come in to my head in the same year, never mind two of them coming back to back. And the thoughts were, it's the drink that's doing the damage, why don't you stop? My only experience of Alcoholics Anonymous was when I was 22. I was living in a bus shelter in Winchester, and I ended up in an AA meeting. And this woman was talking about the crystal glasses and drinking after a dinner party, and I thought, what? You know, I was rough then, and listening to something like that just didn't connect. So there I was. The lights went on after those two sentences. 3 days later, I had my last drink, and I had my last drink to this day. So that was on the 13th of April 2005. And within 5 weeks, I went to Worthing from Reading because I knew of a place called Byron Road. I'd been to it previously. It's not a detox, but the breathalyzer every time you go out. I thought I'll get oxygen and think, where will I go next? I went to the day centre, first of all, because you have to connect to get in. And it says AA Saturday morning in the day centre. And I went along to this meeting, and it blew my mind away. It blew my mind because I seen two personality types. I seen the personality type of the street drinker who hadn't had a drink for 5 years, and I knew the way he was talking, what he was talking about, that he'd been there. And the millionaire, I'd met millionaires all my life, and maybe you've met millionaires, but they always seem to be skint when I'm talking to them. But this one bizarrely said he still had money, but he talked about something about locking himself in a caravan and drinking himself into oblivion, and I identify with that escapism from breath itself, and he's still a good friend to this day. Sadly, the other one passed away, but he passed away sober, and that's what happens in recovery as well. You know, you go to a lot of funerals and stuff, and that was me. I kick-started my recovery. I went back to Gams Anonymous, and my last gamble was the 16th of November 2005. And it's the power of three. I stopped drinking at 40, I stopped gambling at 41, and I stopped smoking at 42. Some of the recovery stuff, I went into Ford prison. I was in there as the gamblers' liaison sort of type thing. So I worked for 7 years in there facilitating gambling meetings as part of my recovery. I was fortunate enough to be unemployable, which created time for me. And most people, when they come into recovery of any sort, have got work and they've got children, they've got huge commitments. I didn't have that. I was the AA liaison as well. So at one time I was AA and GA. I was organising people to come in and to orchestrate meetings. I was negotiating with the staff to keep things moving along in different events. One of the proudest moments I ever had was doing a tea job. With somebody that I put my hand up, and I couldn't speak in these meetings as well. For the first 18 months, you might not believe that when you hear me today, but I couldn't speak. I was too tongue-tied, too nervous, too afraid of what you would think of me, saying the wrong words at the wrong time, not making sense. But what I did do, I wanted to adapt into their way. So whenever they asked for somebody to do the dishes, I put my hands up. I got into service. I started a Gams Anonymous meeting, and from that, it automatically gave me a lot of service positions, a lot of commitments. And the proudest moment was when I done that tea job in AA, and they gave me the key, and I was with a friend. I said, I'll never be homeless again, because I spent a lot of times on the streets and stuff as well. He said, what are you on about? I said, look, I said, I've got the key to that church. and I used to like take pride in the making the tea, and I'd ask them, because as you grow up in Scotland, you end up making tea for 15 people, you know, with 4 tea bags. You're like Jesus, you know, he done it with the loaves and fishes. And so I'd had a week's tea, a strong tea, and I didn't mind, because I knew people had varieties, 1.5 sugars, 3 sugars, whatever. So, and I took pride, and I was there early, I got the biscuits and different things, and that's probably how I went through my recovery, is trying to do the best at everything I can do. I got a sponsor, went through the step process, and as I say, my sponsor was fantastic, and it would say things like, I say, I can't do that. What would happen if you could? I should. You go, should? Well, maybe not should. What would happen if you, and this, who's they? And I later, so I got this awakening. So what did I get awakened to? I got awakened to, I run the marathon. I run Brighton Marathon when I was 47, first marathon. I trained for 10 months. If it was up to me, because the guy that I'd done it with, he was a bit more level-headed, I'd have run around for Christie without training for 100 yards, dropped to my knees and got a taxi home. But no, we trained. I got married. You know, that's a big thing. Some people do that when they've been drinking them. I got married. Got married last year. She doesn't drink. She doesn't smoke. She doesn't gamble. She doesn't take drugs. She's clean living. She's a teacher. She's wonderful. She's vibrant. She's creative, full of energy. I got into education. I went back to education, and I done entry level 3 English. That's when I started that. Entry level 3 English. You don't get a test. You don't get a handwritten test at entry level 3 English. You have a verbal test, sort of thing, and even entry level 2. And that's where I started. And then 10 years later, I actually got a diploma, you know, in psychotherapy. So I'm a qualified therapeutic counsellor, and that wasn't easy. That wasn't easy. You know, I was at college twice. I would go through the day and I go at night. I'd do English and maths. I'd do a pre-access and different things. In fact, I was doing a pre-access course, and I had all the work, and I couldn't grasp it. I was just, it was swarming me. Pre-access is doing everything that you would do at college, for, like, to prepare you for an access course to apply for a university. And I was doing all this stuff, and it came to me. I'd done a meditation. I said, if this is your will for me, God, you'll need to let me know, because I haven't got a clue. And it came to me when I was doing the dishes. Why don't I ask my tutor where I am? And there I did. After the class, I said, I got all my work. I said, could you just tell me where I am with all this? I said, I feel drowning. And so as you get that and that and that, I was keeping all the handouts, and they were accumulating, and that was like come and work for me. And I told my mother I loved her on the phone. And to this day, I speak to her, you know, on the phone, and we say we love each other. I speak to my little nephew every week. We have a time slot, 9 till 10. We've been doing that for several years. So recovery's got me an education. It's got me a wife. But as you go further on in recovery, and I do a lot of service, I facilitate meetings in Gamblers Anonymous and Alcoholics Anonymous, and I work as a volunteer in Brighton through the Recovery College, working with people who schizophrenia, ADHD, all these different mental illnesses, and they go and they share their experiences of, if it was like anxieties. You know, somebody once says, when I got my buddy, what somebody once says, rather than go to the shops when it's busy, I go first thing in the morning. Another person said, I go when it's raining. Learning from each other. Somebody from the dispensary comes in from the surgery and explains what medications are and stuff like that. Absolutely fantastic, and it's great being a part of that. and they've got art classes, they've got drama. I went to the drama and felt like a fool, but everybody felt like a fool, and it was just a foolish, happy day sort of type thing, doing an afternoon of drama on a Saturday afternoon. It was brilliant, and I was there to help somebody to come along, but I get so much out of it as well. It's the emotional recovery is the biggest part. I'll tell you 2 stories about emotional recovery to end with. Emotional recovery is like the last frontier, and it's always ongoing emotional, because you don't know what's going to happen within the next minute. I went up to Scotland. My little nephew, he's got cerebral palsy. He's in a wheelchair, but he's very clever sort of type thing, very astute. And I'm 16 years old. I'm taking him down a public park, and he's going to go into the later college, moving out of school, going into college. I said, "What do you want to do in life?" He said, "You'll laugh, Uncle Neil." I said, "I won't laugh." He said, "You will laugh." He said, "I want to manage Glasgow Rangers." So I paused to gather my thoughts, and I said, from your unique position, from your chair, if you can see something that no one else has seen, or you can see something that's there and enhance it in some sort of dramatic way, and manufacture that and put it out there and make thousands and thousands and thousands of pounds, you can buy yourself onto the board of directors at Rangers, and you can influence over the manager, and you can tap him one day and say, "Look, is there any chance that player could play on Saturday?" It may not be managing, but it's maybe as close as you'll get to it. And I'm getting a bit emotional thinking about it. He turned around, he looked me square in the eye, and he says, "You're the only one that believes in me. You're the only one that believes in me." And that's what it was like with me, with my sponsor, because this man believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. The other one was my father. I had wrote to my father, and there was a bit of connection over the years. Then I spoke to him, like, mediated through my sister, got his phone number, and I wanted to make amends as part of my fellowship stuff. And we spoke, and I said, "Could we meet up?" He said, "We'll speak about it next week." Well, the phone call never came back, and he had a withheld number, and that was like, a lot of years had passed, and I knew he'd have fallen, and I spoke to his sister when I went to Scotland. I go there 2 or 3 times a year now in recovery, and he had a fall, and he was in respite, and I phoned up respite and asked them to ask him if it was okay to go and see him. And I had to travel like 6 hours to see him. I thought, I can't tell him that. And so I got there, and I had the communication. It was quite hard to see him in a different light. And I just talked about the army and all the things that sort of kind of tuned into him, sort of thing. Through my education, I was able to sort of hold the conversation. And then I went down and visited him again. He was actually like put in somewhere. And then it got to a stage where I went down to see him, and he was actually in I can't remember the word for it, but a hospice. That's it, hospice. And he was in his last leg, sort of thing. I went into this room, and it was like 2 or 3 flights up. And I could see right over this town. He was lying in bed. He couldn't speak. His mouth was dry, and I got my phone. I phoned his sister, put the phone to his ear, and I could see his chest going up and down, sort of thing. And I stood there for 2 hours looking out the window, just tell him all about my life. And I said, if there's such a thing as an afterlife, go to it with an open mind. You're going to see your mum, you're going to see your dad, you're going to see all the pets that you love, dogs and different. You're going to see all the people that's passed away in your life. So go there with a degree of happiness rather than what you're leaving behind. And all the people wish you well from this side of the family. And it was a wonderful experience, because the next day he passed away, and I was able to do that through Alcoholics Anonymous and GAMS Anonymous, and the people in my life that helped me with my mental health as well. And I'll leave it there. Thanks. You're muted, Claire.
I know. So powerful. Thank you so much, Neil. That was, wow, gosh, it took me on a roller coaster of emotions. What a story, you know, what a transformation that you've had, you know. It's unbelievable. It really is. You know, if you didn't hear you speaking it, if you watched that sort of story on the television, you'd think, oh gosh, they've used artistic license. But when you hear it spoken from somebody who's lived it, it carries such a powerful message. You know, I've had the pleasure of meeting you a few times, and you've always inspired me. You've always left me with a feeling that I've met one of my own. Do you know what I mean? So thank you for your bravery. Thank you for coming, and thank you for just sharing that powerful message. And I hope that if there's anybody listening that's got any identification, I hope that that your story's just, you know, planted that seed of hope in the heart. So yeah, if you get any questions, Kerr?
Well, basically, I'm reeling from that. I think that was what you've just said is the heart of everything. Is the heart of what recovery is all about. It doesn't matter how far you go down. It doesn't matter how badly you think of yourself. If you decide that you've had enough with your demons and your addictions, you can turn it around at any time. And as ever, Neil, it's such a humbling experience to listen to that. It really is. I mean, I couldn't actually think of a question to ask you because I was hanging on to your every word. I mean, it's just a stunning story. And I believe did you mention a book earlier?
I've been involved with a few projects, and one of the projects there was introduced a woman about book writing, and so I reconnected, and so I'm halfway through it. So it's like 40,000 words, and I've done 20,000 so far. And the way they do it in the wordage is because you want a book at a certain thickness. You don't want it that thick. You have to condense it into a lovely phrase, the irreducible minimum. So yeah, so I'm halfway through the book, and the way you do it as well, and it is literally halfway, and it's just on the cusp of turning into the goodness. Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, if you haven't written a book, you've got to write a book, because that is such a powerful message. And I know that it's hard to write a book. Kev wrote a book years ago, and it was such it was difficult, wasn't it, Kev?
I found it. A lot of people said to me, "Did you find it cathartic?" And no, I didn't. I just felt like an idiot. I felt as though there was a lot of shame, especially in the beginning bits, because I was dealing with bits that were really quite untreated in my early drinking, and I found that I didn't find it cathartic at all. I just felt like a great big idiot, almost screaming at the pages to myself, why are you doing this? Because the hindsight is a great thing, isn't it? I mean, I don't know how you experienced that. I mean, did you find it cathartic, or did you have a similar experience?
First of all, I've went through my life doing a moral inventory. I went through my life doing compulsory 45 sessions, doing my counselling, doing the course. You have to do 45 sessions with a counsellor. So I went through every nook and cranny of my life. But yeah, I found myself swamped with certain incidents, that type thing. And do I put that in, and having that empathy, how's that going to affect someone else? Because your life story is not about you. It's about people in your life and your interactions with them. So I'm very conscious of how it's going to like come across to someone else, and names and situations and stuff. But yeah, I found myself just that uncomfortability. Did I? Did I?
Yeah, yes, I know very much so.
I think it's brave. And I think you're both brave, really, to be honest. Yeah. And you know, for challenging yourselves. I mean, it can't be easy. You know, Kev keeps saying to me, "You need to write your book," and I'm a quarter of the way through it, and it is tough. you know, it is tough. It's not for the faint-hearted, but I don't think recovery is for the faint-hearted either. You know, it's living life on life's terms is sometimes difficult. You know, it's not. It's far easier than active addiction, that's for sure. But sometimes when life hits tough, you know, like watching your dad pass away, and you know, I saw both of my parents to end of life in recovery. And whilst it was one of the most liberating things, it was one of the hardest things I've ever done, you know. But from the pain of it, came real comfort in knowing that I've been the best version of myself to be there for them. You know, it's just amazing, isn't it? You sharing your story about your dad really brought that back.
Of your main addictions, which one would you say was the most prominent? Which was the dominant addiction?
I have no hesitation saying it was gambling.
Yeah.
No hesitation saying it was gambling. My primary recovery came through Alcoholics Anonymous. Alcoholics Anonymous was my sponsor, was an alcoholic. So he took me through the steps. And the first branch of my alcoholic steps is to attend GA and serve GA, sort of type thing. So that's what I do. So my lifeblood is Alcoholics Anonymous, and my core dysfunctional being is gambling. To the extent, this is how crazy, well, it's not crazy, this is how fragile my life is. If I made it fragile, but I don't, because I've got freedom. I've got freedom of thought, I've got freedom of time, I've got freedom of where I go and who I talk to. 2p. If I went down, it's only 200 yards. If I went down to the arcade and put 2p into that little rolly thing, right, and walk out of there and feel the emotions that would give me, I would come home and I've accumulated some money. I would go and get drunk. I would throw my phone away because I don't want to talk to anybody now. And before I know it, before the end of this week, I'd be out this flat and I wouldn't be taking anything, and I'd be on a train and I'd just go. And that's from 2p, but
yeah. And do you think you've talked extensively about your mental health problems? And you know, that's a very brave thing to do. But can I ask you, if, say, for example, you didn't have that history of mental health, do you think you would have become an addict anyway?
It's a very hard question. It's a very hard question. I mean, like, I probably merited both fellowships before I went in, before I had the schizophrenia, before I was diagnosed with the schizophrenia. Yeah, you know, at 18, I was in debts. I had blackouts. I had a blackout when I was 7. We're down the public park drinking, and I remember putting a glass bottle to my mouth. And I woke up the next day and I cut some bruises from head to toe, and I didn't have a clue. We used to hang about these big walls, and I went down. I said, "What was your score last night?" And they said it was the plastic bins with the concrete bottom. Somebody kicked it, and I started fighting with about 6 or 7 friends to protect this bin, sort of type thing. So I had stories that I could put out there in AA, and I know now that that's a low bottom drunk story. You know, to me that was like a misadventure weekend. You know, and there's other stories, you know, of blackouts and violence and stuff, but I didn't want to go into the.
And can I ask you finally? I think how would you approach a problem gambler who was listening to this? What was your words of advice to someone who is in the midst of this madness, this gambling addiction right now?
I'd say go onto Google and the Google Gamblers Anonymous. There's meetings online. Get to a meeting online. The Recovery Road online. There's Bay Keevan locally for the counselling, free counselling. There's all these things online, but I would ask them from the core of their being, and not their head, but from the heart, to accept the money's gone.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And
if they can accept that money's gone, it can take away the compulsion to go and gamble.
Right.
And my last question would be, I know as a family member how important family recovery was. And I mean, a lot of the calls that we get with, we've only been running this helpline since just a week before lockdown. And it's skyrocketed since lockdown. But we get a lot of calls from family members. So could you just touch a little bit on family recovery for gamblers? Gamblers' families, and what help is available for them and how they can help themselves.
Again, break even do families that kind of they'll do online, they'll do remote on the phone, they'll do face-to-face with family members. Gamblers in recovery, it's very similar to gambling on, it's just because it's online now. When you get a recognition in Gambling Anonymous, right? You got a little gold pin. Well, you don't know you got a coin, but at that time you got a gold pin. My mother travelled all the way from Scotland to Brighton. My mother never left the home. She wouldn't go anywhere, but she would come all the way down just to present that with me. And I didn't realise the intensity or the enormity of this until my sponsor pointed it out. Then from that, we went and had my sponsor and my mother had a meal. And she went to an AA meeting with me as well. She went to a convention. A convention is a weekend where there's workshops for gamblers and people in recovery, friends, mothers, sisters, partners, brothers, neighbours that are good, close friends. And they meet up for a weekend 2 or 3 times a year and have workshops on the Friday night, Saturday morning. They have lunch, workshops. Saturday night, they have a dinner dance, then workshops on the Sunday. It's an emotional shower, and it's wonderful, wonderful, wonderful people. My mother went to one when I was doing a talk, and she cried. Oh. So I could see her crying. But it wasn't tears of bitterness or regret or sadness. I can't tell you what was going through her mind, but I imagine it was pride and joy and, motherly sort of type thing. So this isn't a fad. This isn't something that you stop. This is a way of life. But it's important to have a life as well. As I said, the spiritual awakening, I didn't just go into that type of education. It's an education to go into. I went done NLP, I've done landmark education, I've done communications, I'm starting projects up myself. There's a wonderful array of things. And if a family member comes into it, they can actually come in and take care of their own emotions. Because if a wife has got a husband, the wife and the husband stop gambling, every time that husband is late or on a bit of a dodgy mood, is he gambling? Is he wanting to gamble? Is he thinking about gambling? And it erodes the relationship. So whenever I spoke to a woman the other night there for the first time about gambling, and in fact, a partner came to the meeting last night, it can destroy a family, but it can reunite love. It can reunite friendships, trust, because they can come from the ashes. And really, so if the two people start communicating how they're feeling, then it can really accelerate recovery. And the beauty of recovery is that it's not just, it's a lifestyle, same way as the addiction was a lifestyle, but it's reconnecting with relationships, it's reconnecting with fun and leisure can become alien. It's reconnecting with personal development, it's reconnecting with what foods you're putting in your body, the people you hang about with, your outlook in life, what you like, what colours you like, what smells you like, what tastes you like. You forget all these things. That's what's called life, and that's what's missing. Because the thief of all addictions, and that's a generalization, the thief of all addictions is time. Time is the greatest commodity, because when you perform an act of injustice in our community, we put you in prison. And if you commit another act of injustice, we take more time away from you because we put you in isolation. And it's the worst place in the world to go, because in isolation, you're stuck with your own thoughts.
Yeah. Amazing. Yeah, absolutely. And I think you are an amazing narrator, a beautiful storyteller, a powerful storyteller. You know, I mean, the thing is about our stories of recovery is they do change lives. They've changed our lives, you know, and I just want to thank you for being part of our beautiful big recovery family. I know you're one of those people that I could reach out to at any point, and you know, if I needed to connect somebody to you, I know that you'd be there 100%. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. I love listening to you. Could keep you on forever, and I'd love you to come back and talk a little bit more another time, because I think, you know, there's work here to be done, and there are a lot of people out there struggling. And if just by sharing our experience, strength and hope with people can help other people to achieve their greatest potential, because we wouldn't be doing this if it was rubbish. You know, you're a great example of this is a life beyond your wildest dreams. You know, Kev's life's become amazing. My life, I run a charity. You know, Kev's done amazing things with his career. You know, this is all because of recovery. If it was a bad choice, we wouldn't be doing it. So yeah, if anybody's got any questions, or anybody needs just a conversation about where to start, give us a tinkle. I'll do what I can to help connect you with amazing people like Neil. So
and Neil, when your book's out, will you come back on?
Yeah, I will do. Yeah,
I would love that. I would love that.
Yeah.
And we'll do whatever we can to help you, Neil, because you're a great man. So you need all the support in the world as well to get your message out there. So thanks, Neil. Lots of love, and we will see you very soon.
And
Thanks,
thank
everyone.
you for all the work that you're doing. And yeah, it's great to connect.
Lovely to connect with you too, Neil. God bless. See you soon.
Bye. Bye.